Welcome back, everybody. We're going to be in Second Chronicles today, chapters 4 and 5. A twofer! A twofer! Chapters 4 and 5. So when you first read through this, it might seem like just an inventory list of a royal Home Depot. You got bronze basins, you got golden lampstands, and you got a sea that's big enough to bathe a small army. But today we are looking at chapters 4 and 5, and Solomon finishes decking out the temple with all the sacred furnishings, and then, spoiler alert, the glory of the Lord shows up in a cloud so thick the priests can't even stand up at the end. So let's get into it. Kicking off chapter 4, it gives us a detailed description of furnishings that Solomon commissioned for the temple. Everything is precise and rich with symbolic meaning. Verse 1 says this: Solomon also made a bronze altar 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 15 feet high. That's big. Bronze altar, huge, 30 feet wide. Think about like a small conference room or something. That's how big this altar is. Then verse 2, it says, I lost my place. There it is. Then he cast a great round basin 15 feet across from rim to rim, called it the sea. It was 7.5 feet deep and about 45 feet in circumference. It was encircled just below its rim by 2 rows of figures that resembled oxen. There were 6 oxen per foot all the way around, and they were cast as part of the basin. The sea was placed on a base of 12 bronze oxen, all facing outward. 3 faced north, 3 faced west, 3 faced south, and 3 faced east, and the sea rested on them. So you got this big body of water known as the sea. Think massive ancient jacuzzi, but it was strictly ceremonial, and it was held up by 12 bronze oxen. Oh, also, it's important to note here that this body of water held 16,500 gallons of water, which is a ton of water. Then in verse 7, it talks about the 10 lampstands, the tables, the basins, the utensils, all made with precise craftsmanship and placed strategically in the temple. So all of these details, all this stuff is not just holy bling. Every single item is deeply symbolic. The bronze altar represented the sacrifice and the cleansing. The lampstands spoke to God's light, guiding his people. And then the sea, or this body of water, signified the cleansing that was needed before you were to approach a holy God. Now, I do think I need to point out that if Solomon were to build this temple today, he'd probably get stuck with a 3-month back order waiting for the custom bronze basin. He'd call and he'd say, "Hey, where's my bronze basin at?" And the guy would say, "Sorry, Your Majesty, the 12 oxen are still stuck at the port." Hurry it up! Anyhow, I don't know. Maybe. Then in chapter 5, with everything in place, Solomon brings in the most important item, the Ark of the Covenant. The priests, the Levites, the musicians, they gather to dedicate the temple, and something incredible happens at the end. So in verse 1 through 10, it talks about the ark being brought in. This is the moment. This is the sacred object that represented God's covenant with his people in God's presence, and it's placed in the inner sanctuary. It's placed in the Holy of Holies. After that Ark of the Covenant gets placed, starting in verse 11, there's a massive worship service. There's musicians, singers, cymbals, trumpets. If it had strings or made noise of any kind, it was probably there. Then, in verse 13, it says this: The trumpeters and singers performed together in unison to praise and give thanks to the Lord. Accompanied by trumpets, cymbals, and other instruments, they raised their voices and praised the Lord with these words: He is good. His faithful love endures forever. At that moment, a thick cloud filled the temple of the Lord. The priests could not continue their service because of the cloud, for the glorious presence of the Lord filled the temple of God. So this big thick cloud represents God's tangible presence among his people. Just like in Exodus when he had descended on Mount Sinai and later filled the tabernacle, this was a divine stamp of approval from God, and so he moves in to the house that Solomon had built for him. What can we learn from this? What can we take away from this? Number 1, God deserves our excellence. Solomon didn't cut any corners when building this temple, when furnishing this temple. Everything was made with care, beauty, and significance. So the question for us is, how do we prepare our hearts and our spaces in our lives for worship? Whether we're leading a worship service, whether we're stacking chairs, whether we're on the security team, we are to do it with reverence and care. The other thing that's important here is that worship invites God's presence to come and dwell with us. The people worshipped in unity, and then God's glory filled this temple in the form of this cloud. And authentic united worship, whether it's with music, prayer, or silence, all of that prepares the ground. It prepares our hearts for God to move in. And last but not least, today God's glory doesn't dwell in a gold-covered building, but he dwells in you, it dwells in me. 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, "Do you not know that your bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit?" So take care of your temple. Take care of your body, your soul, your community. Make space for God to move into your life and dwell richly. And I'll conclude with this. Solomon built this house for God and then stood back as God's glory rolled in. So today, we don't need gold basins or 15-foot tubs held up by bronze oxen, but we still need hearts prepared for God's presence. So maybe ask yourself this challenging question this week. Is my life a place where God would feel at home? If not, maybe it's time for a little holy house cleaning. Won't he do it?